Welcome to the first yawn, where stories aren't told to you, they happen around you. If you enjoy being gently pulled into other places, other lives just before sleep, please like, subscribe, and leave us a comment. Tell us, where should we wander next? An ancient battlefield? A dusty saloon? A forgotten space capsule? We go through every suggestion, like even if we doze off halfway through. Tonight we'll take you to a city gasping beneath its own breath. London in the year 1349. The streets are quiet now, but don't be fooled. Behind each crooked door and beneath every cobblestone, the world is changing. And you? You're just trying to stay alive long enough to see what tomorrow looks like. Now close your eyes and let the story bring the first yawn. You wake up to the sharp stink of sewage again. It seeps through the gaps in the timber walls and clings to the air like a curse. The damp has been arguing with your lungs all night, and judging by the wheeze in your chest, it's winning. Your bed is straw, sort of. Technically, it was straw once. Now it's more of a lumpy ecosystem. Something scurries deeper into it when you move. You pretend not to notice. You're both just trying to survive. A beam of sickly gray light sneaks through a crack in the shutters. Morning, allegedly, you sit up. Your knees crack like kindling, your head pounds, possibly from the ale, possibly from breathing in your own moldy walls all night. Either way, you're alive. Outside, the alley is already awake. Because London never really sleeps, it just groans and farts through the night. A toothless vendor is already hollering something unintelligible about eels. A drunk is relieving himself against a wall not 5 feet from your door. A barefoot kid sprints past holding what may once have been an apple. The rat chasing him seems invested. You rub the sleep from your eyes. Bad idea. The grit only grinds in deeper. You spit into your palm and use it to smear the crust away. There's no water to spare for washing unless you count the rainwater in that cracked bucket outside, currently doubling as a mosquito nursery. Hunger sets in. It's the kind of hunger that chews from the inside. You check your pantry, which is just a broken crate under your bed, and discover the treasure you stashed yesterday. Cold barley mash. Gray, clumpy, slightly sour. You scrape off the green bits. Bon appetit. You squat on the threshold and dig in, watching the world pass. A man pulls a dead dog off the street like he's done it 100 times. A woman tosses a chamber pot from a second-story window and shouts a half-hearted warning after the splash. Nobody looks up. You spot old Bess's window down the lane. Strangely quiet. She's usually up by now, screaming obscenities at pigeons and anyone who looks like they've sinned recently. Maybe she's just sleeping in, or maybe the pigeons won. A low rumble echoes through the alley. Not thunder, a cart. Wooden wheels grinding over cobblestone. You hear the creak, the groan, and then the bell. That bell. The slow, grim one. You know it well. Everyone does. You don't look. You already know what it is. London in 1349 is home to about 50,000 people, give or take whoever's died overnight. It's a city of smells, most of them hostile. Sanitation? Not a concept. Most streets have one shared outhouse, which is optimistic considering half the population just uses buckets. Or doesn't bother at all. The Thames is technically water. It's also the city's garbage chute, laundry tub, and occasional grave. Rats are the true landlords. They live better than you do, eat better than you do, and have more children who survive infancy. As for disease, well, it's still just a whisper. A bad omen carried from port to port, always happening somewhere else. Not here, not you. Not yet. You don't remember choosing this job. Nobody does. Jobs in 1349 London tend to choose you, usually by way of birth, blackmail, or accidental apprenticeship, after someone vomits on your shoes and then dies. Today, like most days, you work for the tanner, which is to say, you handle dead animal skins, scrape the fat off them, and soak them in a broth of piss, lime, and God's disappointment. Then you hang them to dry and try not to inhale too deeply. The smell clings to your soul. Even your lice smell like it now. You pass the butcher on your way, stepping over a suspicious puddle that's either blood, ale, or really ambitious sauce. The butcher gives you a look, but not a friendly one. More like he's wondering how many cuts you'd make if you keeled over right there. He probably already has a price in mind. You duck into the alley behind the tannery where the fumes are thick enough to pickle your thoughts. Someone's already at the vat. They're stirring the skins with a stick that used to be a shovel. You nod at them. They might be your coworker, or your cousin, or both. Your job today is to soften the hides. This involves urine-soaked leather, a club, and enough upper body strength to qualify as a medieval punishment. Somewhere nearby, a dog howls, then stops, then doesn't start again. You keep working, because if you don't, someone else will, and they'll want your sack of barley mash. Possibly your shoes, maybe your teeth. Around mid-morning, a man runs past holding a cloth to his face. He's got that frantic gait of someone either escaping a crime or outrunning a cough. Either way, not your problem. Yet. A pigeon lands beside you, pecks at something on the ground, and drops dead without ceremony. You take that as a compliment. The smell really is that bad. By noon, your hands are raw, your face is covered in something that used to be part of a goat, and your stomach's growling loud enough to scare away the flies. Not that it works. You consider taking a break, but then you remember what happened the last time you took a break. You were replaced for 3 days by a man with no nose who worked faster than you and asked fewer questions. No one knows where he went. No one's asking. So you press on. In 1349, London's working class didn't thrive so much as persist out of spite. Jobs were unpleasant at best and fatal at worst, though fatal was increasingly becoming the norm regardless of profession. Tanners were among the least popular people in town, and not just because they smelled like fermented goat death. The process involved soaking skins in human urine, pounding them with clubs, and drying them on racks where crows would help themselves to the leftovers. But hey, employment was technically full. Wages were low, conditions were lethal, and workers had all the legal protections of a sandwich. But people worked anyway, because even in a city riddled with filth, fear, and fleas, you still had to eat. Even if it was just barley mash. Again. The tannery lets you go just before noon. Not out of kindness. It's because the sun overhead turns the vats from unbearable to possible war crime. Even rats won't linger too long in that heat. You take the hint and stagger out, arms aching, nose numb, soul gently weeping. It's lunch, technically. You sit on a cracked stone by the river, or at least near something you optimistically call river adjacent. The Thames is doing what the Thames does, bubbling, reeking, and silently plotting revenge against humanity. A bloated shape floats past, probably a sheep, hopefully a sheep. From your pouch, you pull out your meal, a crust of bread so hard it could double as a weapon, a lump of something cheese-shaped, and a flask of ale that's more backwash than beverage. You watch a merchant argue with a rat over a dead fish. The rat wins. The merchant pretends he was never interested in the first place. Nearby, a group of laborers cough and sink, like a choir rehearsing for a funeral they'll all be attending soon. You glance at your cheese, it has veins. Not metaphorically actual veins, you eat it anyway. A man stumbles into the street, clutching his side. He looks around wildly, mouth open, eyes red. He drops to his knees. People scatter except for one lady who throws a cabbage at him and yells something that might be a prayer or just her opinion of his performance. You chew faster. From across the way, you hear two older women whispering behind their shawls. The words Italian ship, black boils, and God's punishment float across the square like smoke. You pretend not to hear, but the itch in your armpit suddenly feels suspicious. You pass by a tavern and peek through the open shutter. Inside, it's half full, or half empty, depending on whether you're an optimist or a realist who reads plague death notices for fun. A man leans on the counter, pale and sweating. The bartender wipes down the surface with a cloth that's seen too much and done too little. You keep walking. Somewhere near the fishmonger's stall, now mostly fish bones and regrets, you spot something odd. A man wearing what looks like a bird mask. You blink. He's gone. Could have been imagination, or fumes, or something new. The bell tolls again. You don't even flinch this time. It's background noise now, like dogs barking or nobles taxing. You toss the rest of your bread into the gutter. A duck tries to eat it, chokes, reconsiders, and waddles off insulted. Lunch in 1349 wasn't a relaxing affair. Unless your idea of relaxing involves sour ale, stale bread, and sitting within sniffing distance of several open wounds. The average Londoner's diet was mostly grains, more grains, and something pretending to be cheese. Meat was rare unless it was spoiled, and then it was common. Fish was available if you didn't mind bones, scales, or the occasional parasite. And the taverns, let's just say you were more likely to get dysentery than drunk. By now, rumors of plague were pouring in faster than ale. Italian sailors dying in ports, black lumps growing under arms, entire households vanishing overnight. But most Londoners still thought it was just that, rumors. After all, people died all the time. Nothing new about that. The scary part wasn't that people were dying. It was how fast they were dying, and how no one seemed able to stop it. Your errands start with a simple goal. Find something vaguely edible that doesn't smell like it's plotting your murder. That's it. That's the bar now. You step out onto the main street. It's busier than you'd expect for a city mid-apocalypse. But then again, most people here wouldn't know the apocalypse if it sat on their face and coughed. You pass the fish market, or what's left of it. A few stalls are abandoned, nets still hanging, flies thick enough to blot out the sun. One fishmonger is asleep, or unconscious, face down on a crate of what looks like mackerel, but could easily be hallucination by this point. The fish look concerned. You make your way toward the market square, dodging a cart overloaded with turnips and a man loudly sobbing into a dead chicken. Both somehow seem normal. There's a woman selling miracle talismans under a sheet strung between two poles. Her wares include a dried frog foot, a piece of sacred string, and what appears to be a perfectly ordinary pebble with a tiny face drawn on it. She swears they all ward off plague. You buy the pebble not because you believe it works, but because the pebble has more confidence than you do right now. As you pocket your new holy friend, a commotion erupts near the butcher's stall. A man is on the ground, writhing. Someone yells and people scatter like rats from a torch. Which is ironic because the actual rats just keep nibbling on a cabbage like it's none of their business. You watch from a safe distance, which in this context means behind someone fatter. The man on the ground isn't moving now. Someone covers him with a sackcloth. Another someone takes his boots. Life goes on. You continue your errands. You need something for your cough, which has gotten persistent. You blame the tannery, the weather, the dust, the concept of air itself. You stop by a local healer who lives in a shack. She offers you 3 remedies. A leech in a jar named Harold, a powdered concoction that smells like onions and regret, and lastly a prayer written backwards on goatskin. You take all 3 because why not? You're on a health kick. Further down the street, a friar is standing on a crate shouting about sin. Standard fare. He's wearing a sackcloth and hitting himself with a twig for dramatic effect. A few people watch, some nod, one sneezes and is immediately given a 5-meter radius by the rest of the crowd. Your next stop is the candlemaker. You need light for the nights now that the sun seems afraid of your neighborhood. The candle maker is gone. The shop is open. Candles still inside, door swinging gently in the breeze. There's a note on the counter that just says, "Gone to God." You help yourself to a candle. On your way home, you pass the barber surgeon's tent. Business is booming. There's a line of desperate men, a table stained like murder, and a bowl of used teeth. A sign promises, "Bloodletting while you wait." You decide you're not that desperate yet. The sky starts to dim, not from dusk, but from smoke. Somewhere nearby, someone's burning something big. Probably clothes or furniture or relatives. You don't ask. As you turn the final corner toward your alley, a figure stumbles into your path. They're thin, pale, eyes hollow. They open their mouth as if to say something, then drop like a puppet with its strings cut. Right in front of you, you freeze. Everyone else just walks around them. One man mutters a prayer. A child pokes the body with a stick. You stare for a moment too long, then step over and keep walking. That was probably fine. Probably. London's markets never really closed. Even during a plague, you had to buy food, bribe priests, and collect odd-smelling medicine from someone with a beard and no credentials. The belief in bad air meant that sweet-smelling items, flowers, herbs, vinegar-soaked rags, became medieval face masks. There were also lucky charms, blessed objects, and a sudden boom in the dead pigeon as health talisman industry. Capitalism always finds a way. Doctors, if you could afford one, were as likely to kill you as cure you. Treatments included bloodletting, boil lancing, mercury rubs, sitting in a hot oven, briefly. And if that didn't work, they'd recommend prayer, or fleeing, or both. Fear didn't spread the disease. Rats and fleas did. But fear made sure nobody stopped it. Because by the time most Londoners took the plague seriously, they were already coughing up bits of themselves. You make it halfway home before realizing something's wrong. Not just the usual rotting meat in the sun kind of wrong. This is structural wrong. Like the city itself is holding its breath. The streets are quieter. Not silent, there's still a dog barking somewhere, a baby crying 2 alleys over, and the ever-present sound of someone throwing up into something inappropriate. But quieter. Then you spot it. A wooden barrier, freshly hammered across one end of the street. Sloppy work, rushed. Behind it, 2 men in layers of cloth stand guard. One has a halberd, the other has a bell. That's never a good sign. You change direction. 2 blocks over, another street is sealed. This one with barrels and crates stacked into a makeshift blockade. Someone's written "plague" in charcoal on a bedsheet and tied it like a flag of surrender. You start walking faster. Not full panic, not yet. But your heart's knocking against your ribs like it's trying to break a lease early. You slip down a side alley to avoid a third barricade and nearly trip over a pile of rags that groans when you step on it. You pass the bakery, closed, door boarded. A single half-burnt loaf sits in the window like a memorial. The candle you stole earlier is still in your pocket. You grip it like a lucky charm. Isn't maybe light scares disease away? Or rats, or guilt? Another bell rings. Deep, slow, deliberate. You glance up just in time to see a cart roll past the main road. But this one's different. There are no bodies piled in the back. Just bundles of clothing, torn shirts, shawls, blankets. Burnt at the edges. Someone's been purging homes. You keep moving. At your alley, you find someone's already beaten you to the barricade. A small crowd has gathered at the end of the lane, whispering like they're afraid the walls might hear. A man with an official-looking hood stands in front of them, arms crossed. You can't make out what he's saying, but the gestures are clear. Don't leave. Don't come near. Don't ask why. People begin backing away like he's contagious, which, given the circumstances, he very well might be. You slip into your hovel unnoticed, lock the door, then bolt it. then wedge a stool under the handle for good measure. Outside, someone coughs. You hold your breath until it stops. The smell of smoke drifts through the cracks in your wall. Not hearth smoke, but the harsh, bitter stench of something unnatural. Burned cloth, burned flesh. Someone's cleaning house the fast way. You light your candle. The tiny flame flickers, barely enough to push back the dark. But it's something. You sit and wait. Lockdowns in 1349 weren't exactly subtle. There were no emergency alerts, no citywide announcements, no leaflets. Just wood, nails, and terrified neighbors suddenly disappearing behind barricades. The idea was simple. Isolate the sick. The execution? Less simple. Entire households were sealed inside, healthy or not. Guards were stationed to prevent escape, though many simply bribed their way out or used the ancient tactic of leaving before anyone noticed. Some neighborhoods burned infected clothing, bedding, or entire homes. Smoke was seen as cleansing, fire as divine judgment. Either way, things that burned didn't come back. Quarantine efforts varied. Some were strict. Some were performative. Some were abandoned the moment a guard got the sniffles. What mattered was the fear. By the spring of 1349, London had stopped pretending things were under control. The plague wasn't coming anymore, it was here. And it wasn't going anywhere. The sun doesn't set so much as retreat. It slips behind the rooftops like it wants nothing to do with what's coming. The sky turns a thick, jaundiced gray, then bruises into black. You light your candle, the one you liberated from the shop with the Gone to God sign. It flickers like it has second thoughts. Your room feels smaller than it did this morning, or maybe your fear's grown larger. Hard to tell. You sit on your straw sack and listen. Someone's coughing in the next house over. Not the usual casual cough either. This one sounds like it's dragging splinters up from the lungs. Every breath ends in a wheeze. Then a pause. Then another cough. Like clockwork. Broken, blood-soaked clockwork. You stare at the wall between you, as if looking harder might help. A soft thud, then silence. You stare harder, then a scream, sharp, fast, cut off before it fully forms. Then that silence. The kind that presses on your ears and makes you wonder if you've gone deaf, or if the world has simply stopped bothering. You don't move. The candle flickers. The flame bends sideways like it's trying to flee. You wedge your stool tighter under the door handle and shove your crate of moldy barley mash in front of it for good measure. This is what home security looks like now. You lie down, try to sleep, but your mind is racing. What was that thing on your arm earlier? That bump? A boil? Just a bite? Probably a flea. Probably. You shift on your sack and feel something moving in it. You don't check. If it's a rat, you'll name it. If it's worse, it can have the place when you're gone. A whispering starts outside. Or maybe chanting, hard to tell. Could be prayer, could be arguing, could be ghosts. Honestly, anything feels plausible now. The wind slips through the cracks in your wall, bringing with it the scent of smoke. Thick, acrid. You smell ashes, and something under the ashes. You press your face into the straw to block it out, immediately regret that decision and sit up choking. Somewhere in the distance, bells begin to ring again. Not the usual bring out your dead toll. This one's higher pitched, urgent. It's the sound of a city praying and panicking at the same time. Then, outside your window, movement. A shadow. Someone stumbling down the alley, arms out, muttering something you can't hear. You peek through a gap in the shutter and watch them sway, then collapse. They don't get up. They're not the first today. They won't be the last tonight. You blow out your candle. It's safer to be unseen. In the dark, your thoughts crawl in. What if you're already sick? What if everyone else is dead? What if no one's coming? You wrap yourself in a tattered blanket, which offers roughly the same protection as wishful thinking. You curl into yourself and try to sleep. Outside, rats squeal in a turf war. Somewhere, someone is weeping. And something knocks once, gently, against your wall. You don't check. When night fell over plague-era London, it didn't bring rest. It brought dread. Darkness wasn't just inconvenient. It was dangerous. With no organized curfews, most people barricaded themselves indoors at sunset. That is, if they were still well enough to move. Streetlights didn't exist, so alleys became pitch-black corridors where shadows moved like whispers. Coughs that went silent overnight stayed silent for good. Fires were often set to purify the air, and entire blocks glowed red as clothing, bedding, and sometimes homes went up in smoke. Fear bred paranoia, and paranoia bred noise. Prayers, chants, screams. But just as often, it bred silence. A silence heavy with bodies that never made it to the plague carts. By 1349, London was becoming a city of locked doors and dying candles. And the people still alive? They lay in the dark and waited their turn. You wake up in the dark, sweating like you've just outrun a mob, but you haven't moved. Your blanket is tangled around your legs like it tried to strangle you in your sleep. Your mouth tastes like rust and regret. Your skin is boiling, or maybe freezing. Hard to tell. Both, probably. You reach up to wipe your forehead and feel something wet. You hope it's sweat. You really, really hope it's sweat. Your sack of straw now smells like it's given up. Even the rat that used to share the space seems to have packed its bags. You're alone. The candles melted into a wax puddle beside you. No more light. Just a dim orange glow from somewhere outside. A fire, maybe, or the gates of hell. Your stomach churns. You sit up, then immediately lie back down. The world tilts. The ceiling looks further away than usual. It bends at the corners. Breath rasps in your throat like it's clawing to get out. You try to sleep. And that's when the dreams start. You're at a feast, long wooden table, dozens of smiling faces. Everyone's eating, tearing into roasted meat, pouring thick wine, laughing without sound. You look down at your own plate, a steaming haunch of something. You cut it open, it oozes black. You blink, the feast is gone. Now you're in the street, but it's underwater. Not water, something thicker. Slow, and bodies float by, still smiling, eyes open. You try to scream, but bubbles come out. One pops and whispers your name. You sit up in bed. Or you think you do. You might still be dreaming. You might never have left. There's something on your chest. Heavy, pressing. You can't see it, but you feel it. Your lungs strain like bellows. You wheeze, you sweat. You mutter something, like a prayer, a curse, a recipe. It doesn't matter. Then you see it. A shape in the corner of the room. Tall, watching, beaked mask. Black robes. It lifts a hand and points. At you. You blink. Gone. Just a shadow. Or a hallucination, or something worse. You try to get up again. Make it halfway to your knees. Then vomit into the straw. A dark, viscous mess. Your head pounds with each heartbeat, and your heartbeat sounds wrong. Sluggish, muffled, like it's echoing from somewhere else. You crawl back onto the sack. The chills come next. Your bones feel hollow. Your joints ache like they've been soaked in vinegar. You pull the blanket around yourself, but it's like wrapping yourself in cold screams. Your thoughts spiral. You remember the pebble you bought. The one with the face. You find it. Hold it tight. It's still warm. Or maybe you're just cooking. You whisper to it. Beg it to work. Nothing. A knock at the wall. Once, then silence. Your nose starts to bleed. Or maybe it's your eyes. Hard to say. Vision's a bit melty now. You lie back. Let go. Let the darkness rise like water. You dream of crows with human voices, of saints with missing faces, of rats wearing crowns. And somewhere, deep in the fever haze, you wonder if this is it. Or just the warm-up act. The plague didn't just kill, it corrupted. It turned healthy people into fevered wrecks in hours. First came the headache, then the swelling. Lymph nodes bloating into black, painful lumps under the arms, around the groin, along the neck. The skin bruised. The breath grew foul. Then came vomiting. Delirium. And finally, silence. If you were lucky, it ended quickly. If you weren't, it stretched into days of agony, hallucinations, and a slow, burning unraveling of your body's will to fight. Many sufferers experienced vivid visions in their final hours. Saints, demons, dead relatives, the Virgin Mary, and sometimes all at once. Some cried, some confessed, some laughed. Very few recovered, and even those who did, they never truly walked out of the fever. You wake up unsure of the day, the time, or whether you ever actually slept. You're dry now. Too dry. No sweat, no saliva. Your tongue feels like a piece of jerky someone stepped on. Your lips crack when you breathe. But you're upright. Somehow. You crawl to the door, peel it open a few inches. The alley's changed. No voices, no laughter, not even arguments. Just the creak of wood and the occasional clatter of something falling that shouldn't be falling. You step outside, slowly. Lightheaded but vertical, a small victory. The alley smells like ash and iron, the kind of scent that doesn't leave clothes or memories. You wander out onto the street. You don't know why. Maybe because staying inside feels more dangerous now. Maybe because your brain has decided it's had enough stillness. The city looks abandoned. The fish stall is overturned. Eels rot in the gutter. The pigeon population has exploded and now rules the square. One struts across a corpse like it owns it. Maybe it does. The door to the tavern is wide open. Inside, every stool is empty. Every mug is full. The barkeep is missing, or maybe that's him slumped over the barrel in the corner. Either way, you take a sip. Still warm, still terrible. You keep walking. Down one lane, you see a cart tipped on its side, wheels spinning uselessly. No driver, no horse. Just a trail of something dark leading into a building with no door. On another, a man stands in the middle of the street, arms outstretched, eyes closed. His skin is covered in sores. You avoid him. Everyone avoids him. Even the flies seem to give him space. You pass what used to be a church. The bell's gone. The cross hangs upside down. The doors are open, but no one's inside, unless you count the rats gnawing through the hymnals. You turn down your old route to the tannery. It's been ransacked. Vats tipped, hides stolen or burned, the air still thick with ammonia. No workers, no screams. Just a slow drip from somewhere deep in the back. You don't investigate. You head for the square. Bodies lie in neat piles as if someone was trying to be respectful, and then gave up halfway through. The pigeons have claimed that territory too. One watches you from atop ahead. You make eye contact. There's a child sitting at the edge of the well, legs dangling. She hums something tuneless. Her clothes are too big, her face too pale. She doesn't look up. You keep moving. You reach a block where windows are shattered, doors left swinging. The air smells burnt. Not like fire, like panic. Charred wood, singed fabric, melted lives. You step over a burnt doll and keep walking. You pass a man digging a hole with his bare hands. He doesn't look up, just digs. There's already something in the pit. You don't check what. No one stops you. No one speaks. There are no rules anymore. Just ash, silence, and the occasional sound of boots running away from something toward nothing. At the height of the Black Death, cities didn't fall all at once. They unraveled. The system stopped first. Food delivery, waste removal, clerical record keeping. Then the markets shuttered. The churches overflowed. The graveyards overflowed harder. Guards deserted posts, merchants fled. Priests locked their doors and prayed into the floorboards. Officials either vanished or died trying to look like they were still in control. The living began treating the dead like furniture, something to step over, something to ignore. Entire blocks were left untouched for days. No one dared enter. No one dared help. If you saw someone collapse on the street, you didn't call out. You didn't rush in. You walked faster. Because by that point, it wasn't about being good or bad. It was about still breathing. You don't remember when you last spoke to someone, not just passing them in the street, or really spoke, laughed, argued, lied, something normal. Now there's just wind and bells and your own heartbeat to keep you company. You've stopped locking the door. No one's coming in. And if they do, they're probably past carrying what's yours. The street is dust. Dust and cloth and the occasional limb. You don't react to those anymore. You barely react to yourself. You still have the pebble, the one with the face. You talk to it sometimes. It's the best listener you've ever met. Today you step outside and hear a new sound. Digging. You follow it. Down a narrow lane, past a house that's collapsed inward like it gave up, you find a child. Maybe 7 years old, maybe 10. Could be 50. Hard to tell anymore. She's small. Her hands are raw. She's digging a shallow hole behind a crooked fence. In the hole, a woman. You say nothing. She doesn't look at you. Just keeps digging. You leave her a crust of bread. It's all you have. She doesn't thank you, and that feels fair. You keep walking. The square is unrecognizable. Once a place for shouting, trading, swindling, now a field of bodies. Some piled, some scattered. Some oddly arranged like someone started making art and got bored halfway through. You find a bench and sit down, not because you're tired, though you are, but because you don't remember what else to do with your legs. A cart rolls past pulled by a single mule. No driver, just the mule, plodding forward, trailing a few ropes that once tied down something heavier. The church doors are open now. Inside, a few candles still burn. You step in. It smells of wax, mildew, and ghosts that never got properly filed. You sit in a pew. Try to pray. Nothing comes. You leave. Later, you lie down on a patch of sun-warmed stone outside your house. You stare at the clouds. One of them looks like a loaf of bread. Another looks like a rat. Another just looks wrong. You cough. A small one. Nothing impressive. Your hand finds the pebble again. You hold it, just in case. You close your eyes. And wait. By mid-1349, London had lost anywhere between a third and half of its population. No one took an official census, because everyone in charge of counting was also dead. Survivors were left to pick through the wreckage. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. For every 10 neighbors, 5 were gone. 2 had fled. 1 had gone mad. And if you were lucky, 2 were still breathing. Bodies were buried in mass graves, or burned, or simply left. The earth couldn't keep up. No city ordinance, no crown decree, no priestly sermon could stop the simple math of infection. The people who didn't die, they adapted. They looted. They hoarded. They gave up. Or they simply waited it out. And eventually, the plague receded. Not because of divine mercy, not because of clever medicine, but because it had run out of bodies. And those who remained, they got up, dusted off, and tried to remember what life looked like before the rats came. You wake up Still breathing, no boils, no fever, no blood in the straw. Disappointing in a way. You were starting to feel special. Your joints still ache. Your breath still rattles, but you're vertical. London is quieter now. Not silent, never truly silent, but softer. The bells have stopped. The carts have stopped. Even the screaming's taken a break. You step outside and blink at the light. Sunlight. Honest to God, unapologetic sunshine. It glints off the puddles and catches in the dust motes. Like the city's trying to pretend it didn't just have a complete mental breakdown. You walk the street. The pigeons scatter, less arrogant now. The rats, as always, are unbothered. You pass the bakery. A thin curl of smoke rises from the chimney. The door is open. A new baker, or the old one, returned, or maybe a ghost with strong opinions about sourdough. You nod at him. He nods back. No words. You make it to the square. Someone's sweeping. Not very well, but the effort counts. A few people stand around a cart with actual vegetables in it. Real ones. Green, wiggly, possibly edible. Someone's child chases a cat and the cat doesn't immediately vanish into the afterlife. Life in its own stubborn way is trickling back in. You don't smile. Smiling feels like tempting fate. But you walk with your head a little higher. Your stomach rumbles. That feels like hope. You pass your old workplace. A new sign hangs above the door. Tannery reopens soon. Help wanted. You don't go in. Instead, you keep walking. Past the broken houses, the burnt walls, the half-collapsed chapel. Past memories that haven't fully died yet. Past the grave mounds with no names. You keep walking. You've survived the plague. You're not entirely sure why or how or what comes next. But the sun is shining and the eels are back on the menu. And somewhere down the lane, you hear old Bess shouting at the pigeons again. The Black Death didn't end in a blaze of glory. It slouched off, bored, having killed everything it came to kill. The survivors? They rebuilt, slowly, clumsily, with too many ghosts and not enough shoes. Some became wealthier. Fewer mouths meant more bread. Some fled forever. Others just scrubbed their doorsteps and pretended nothing had happened. London survived. Barely. And forever changed. As for you? Well, you've earned a fresh sack of straw. And maybe, just maybe, tomorrow's barley mash won't be as sour. Thank you for listening, and we hope you have a great sleep.